Hi, this is Jennifer Norwood, and today we'll talk about Echo Global Logistics and globalization and its impact. So just looking at the textbook and going through that and going through the transport tracker and really looking at what they're providing. Reading it, it's an old article in 2016 and things didn't look so good in the industry, but we are seeing a lot more growth in the world trade, as well as the impact that e-commerce has had on that growth. And, with the benefit that fuel prices have dropped, even though now they're starting to go up, different areas of the transportation and logistics sector have really capitalized on that. In addition to the growth of, or the bigger ships being developed and built, is leading to excess capacity in containers. Although it's cheaper to ship them, they're not filling those ships as quickly. And then when we look at fuel prices, even though now we're starting to see them creep back up in the U.S., truckers and transportation across the U.S. are using lots of fuel, and they're going to continue to use it because the trucking capacity is tightening due to the lack of the drivers and the new regulations for their electronic data logging. So I don't really see those as big factors impacting Echo as much. I really see the globalization that has been impacted Echo more based on the e-commerce. And so I'm just going to kind of go towards that direction, as well as talk about the other factors like the mergers and acquisitions and technology. Those are all really important things that are impacting Echo. So just to increase in the global marketplace and the globalization, e-commerce has really eliminated those barriers to enter into foreign markets. And along with that e-commerce is greater technology and technology leads. Technology developments and innovations. And, one of the challenges are for older companies to compete because they need to have new technology. And, even though they've put significant investments in physical infrastructure to change, or risk losing businesses to new companies, new businesses are based on that e-commerce model. They're favorable for handling the social media platforms, the smartphones, and the consumers who are really in tune to that. Additionally, they're promoting themselves on those social media sites. And so it really is a new world when we look at world trade. The e-commerce has also allowed the world to become a much smaller place, and we're seeing a greater increase in instead of the business to consumer e-commerce, it's now business to business that's outpacing, because the businesses are getting on board and saying, this is what we want, this is how we want to use it. And this e-commerce has developed companies that can have lower overheads. They're already coming in with the technology in place. They already have the cash, and it's changing the supply chains. Really now supply chains are becoming not just the suppliers, but the processes and the systems that they brought in to ensure that a product moves from point A to point B for the customer, but it needs to have that digitalization and the integration of technology in order to give that visibility, and that's what customers are looking for now. So additionally, when we look at it, we're looking at the IT and software integrated platforms, such as the transportation management systems, providing clients with a clear picture of their shipments. Then merger and acquisitions are occurring due to the fragmentation industry. And I think that's going to continue, especially for a lot of big players. Just recently, we saw the article with Maersk purchasing another company. So you're going to see a lot of that sort of mergers and acquisitions happening. And then the new entrants, are the digital freight brokers and sort of the Uberization, if you will, of what is coming and can come and how it can be disruptive to the way the industry currently is running. And I think those have a bigger impact than some of the items mentioned in the Transport Tracker article. So in terms of Echo's outlook, when it comes to globalization. With this sort of e-commerce, eliminating the barriers to the foreign markets and kind of the business-to-business outpacing the business-to-consumers in e-commerce, Echo will be able to still capitalize on the increase of that e-commerce, because regardless of what happens, goods have to get from point A to point B. And they're a mainly trucking company. That's what their kind of core things that they do. Now, the biggest concern for the trucking capacity, and an increase in the spot market, they have the staying power to compete, but they need to make sure they're focusing on those key performance indicators for their carriers to ensure expectations are met and they're delivering on those customer expectations for Echo. They need to ensure that they stay customer-centric focused, because the customer needs to be a priority. This is where these other companies that are emerging, they can focus on the client because they already have the technology in place. And again, it's low cost to come in. And if they already come in with that experience, they can do it better. Additionally, they need to ensure that they have strong employee satisfaction and really maintain a focus on their employees, because they are the direct link to the customer and to the carrier. They're the ones who are speaking for Echo. They are Echo. They're the face of Echo, and they need to ensure that the employees are happy, so they'll stay. You want to keep that staying power. Additionally, when we look at the IT and the software integrated platforms, such as transportation management systems, Echo, they need to really stay focused on ensuring their optimizer platform and then their software as a service web portals are functional with very little issue and downtime. And they need to continue to invest with research and development projects and with their current partnerships with Project 44 and Anaplane and etc. And then what they need to do is make sure they stabilize those current systems, that they're functioning at 100%, that if there's any bugs or issues, that they're fixing them. And they really need to get that mobile app developed for use by both the customer and the carrier to interact with the employee. They haven't really maintained that focus yet, and they need to get there. So they need to ensure that they're delivering a top-notch technology service. Next, when we look at mergers and acquisitions, Echo really has undergone such an aggressive merger and acquisition strategy since 2016 with close to 20 acquisitions. So really my view is they need to focus on ensuring their internal culture is healthy. They have undergone lots of continuous change, which has impacted both the employee and the customers, as well as the carriers. So really, from my perspective, they should really hold off on any future mergers and acquisitions and make sure they focus on developing and ensuring that the company is operating based on the visions and the mission that they have for the company. It's not good enough to just assume everything's synergy, everything's working perfectly, when the truth is mergers and acquisitions are a huge disruption for a company, because you're trying to blend cultures, and upper management may not really see what's happening in the lower ranks. So they really need to make sure that this is operating healthy and at an optimal sense, and making sure that everybody, including those companies that have become Echo, are feeling like they're part of the company and not just somebody who's been acquired and now they've just come to a job instead of a place that they really believed in. Next, looking at new entrants, digital freight brokers and sort of the Uberization. This is a threat to Echo because they have a low cost of startups and they can leverage that top technology software systems to book carriers. They can go direct to the carrier utilizing the spot market and delivery to the customer and just coordinate with the shipment. The disruption with startup is they have lots of cash, they're technology savvy, and they have an app-based tech that makes use of most of the empty space on trucks. And even though they're only getting a small portion, only 5 to 6% of the market share, that potential for the market to grow is really great, especially because their biggest focus is on their customers. So the Uber delivery service, Amazon is looking at a delivery service, and then these are some other examples. Sleek Fleet, Transfix, and Convoy. Sleek Fleet is one where the app utilizes and recognizes empty space on trucks and then is able to book it immediately going directly to the carrier. So it's really interesting what is coming out, and even though these are small companies taking up small portions of the market, it's what's being taken away from that C.H. Robinson, the Echo Global, these companies that have been in the business for a while are now competing against these young companies that are hungry and have very low cost to operate. And they have also a low cost to operate because they have a low infrastructure in terms of people. So the globalization and tariffs, there is a potential for the impact of the global trade due to the imposed tariffs. So for example, the low value, high density in nature, such as the steel and aluminum. So the steel tariff could impact things like the auto import industry and the washing machines and bridges. And for Echo, it's potential that it could be a positive because Echo is moving stuff by truck. They're also moving it by rail, and steel tends to move that way. But, initially steel starts as a raw product and then becomes utilizing iron ore and metallurgic coal, and then it becomes steel. So it kind of makes us less competitive. But some interesting facts that I found in terms of steel. The U.S. imports about 32.6% of its steel. And with that, globally, the U.S. is a top importer at 8% of all the global steel imports, and this was in 2016. But in terms of the total goods imported to the U.S., steel is only 1%. And then I found it interesting that we import from 85 different countries and territories, mostly from NAFTA partners, and we're not really utilizing the world's top producers of steel. So, for instance, China was the largest steel producer, but U.S. only imported 2% of steel from China, relying more on Canada, which was 16% of its imports, and Brazil, South Korea, and then Mexico, which had 9%. So it's really kind of interesting to see that, and this is all based on kind of understanding the impacts of these tariffs. So it can have an impact on things like automotives, washing machines, that type of stuff. But as far as impact on Echo, it's not quite as heavy. As far as the high-value, low-density goods, things like technology or goods moved by FedEx, UPS, your kind of e-commerce stuff, they're going to probably be less disruptive due to the e-commerce and the ability that sort of e-commerce to grow. Now, if trade wars continue or ensue really and get heavy-handed, it could impact the e-commerce. But I think that we would be able to overcome it in the long term. I think there would be a back down before it really impacted fully on that sort of level of concern. So, as far as Echo's globalization strategy, they're limited in their operation. They're mainly focused on national or the regional trucking in the U.S. They do offer the international services, but I think it's really because it's client-driven. They offer international air and sea shipments, and they focus on providing a dedicated team who provides a vendor and carrier coordination. They utilize pre-qualified freight forwarding and vendor partnerships, kind of with an access to a network of more than 500 locations worldwide. So I really think this is smart to utilize experts in the area since they have less experience. And I think they really need to ensure that they're maintaining smart partnerships worldwide for that quality service. They're not really focusing directly on a globalization as yet because of their continued growth and their regional growth. But really, right now, I think they need to focus on the core services and ensure that they improve their customer service as well as the carrier expectations and then the employee satisfaction before really considering focusing on the globalization of the company. Fuel prices with the drop opened up more cargo capacity for planes. And, globalization strategy really needs to be a low cost for Echo, which it is now. And by utilizing those expertise and partnerships to deliver on their international shipments, they don't have to make that a core focus. I really think they need to focus again on their customer service, carrier expectations, and employee satisfaction, and their internal company culturally. So here are my references. I really look forward to hearing what everybody has to say, and thank you very much for taking time to listen to my presentation.